And we are live, Rudy.
Yes, we are. The date today is June 14th, 2022. I have a bad head cold, pardon my voice, but keep in mind we're talking mid-June of 2022 as we give you advice and tips and news. Why don't you go first, Tommy? You got more items than I do.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, welcome back. Rudy's been on the road and he had a long vacation now that he took advantage of and had a good time. So, how was your trip, Rudy?
Well, Greece was one. I haven't been back to Greece in several years, and I went to a new island a friend of mine told me about called Syros, Syros. And it's quite quiet and very nice and gorgeous, and the weather is fabulous. And I hated coming back to Minnesota, much as I love Minnesota.
Careful. You'll end up like Frasier in that episode where he says it always rains in Seattle and he hates it.
Right.
All right. So, we're in Europe and we're now back in the U.S. for the summer. But what has happened that we've seen that's interesting reported this week that last week the test required to return to the United States or for anybody visiting the United States was removed last week, which means that Americans can now freely travel without testing coming back.
Right.
And that's a big change for sure of how people's travel habits. We've seen a lot of demand for domestic hotels because people are choosing to vacation here and to avoid the getting stuck overseas if you test positive. And now that's now gone. And United Airlines is reporting that there's a 7% increase week over week of people searching, 2.4 million searches on international travel on their website. That's pretty interesting.
Oh boy, that is interesting. I just came back, as I mentioned, from Greece and flew through Amsterdam to return to Minnesota on KLM, which is a partner with Delta, which owns Minnesota. And I guess about a week ago, or about 10 days ago, I flew through Amsterdam then as well. Amsterdam Airport, first of all, it's a huge airport. So if you're coming into Amsterdam Airport from a European country to connect to a flight back to the States, you might think, well, that'll be easy because I'm just in transit. Well, you're in transit till you hit passport control. And of the 12 automated lines that U.S. passport holders could go through, only 4 were working yesterday when I came through. So
you barely made it, huh?
Barely made it. And in London, they're simply short of staff. So Gatwick and Heathrow are a huge mess. They don't have enough staff because of Brexit. You know, they had all those people from Europe who could come in and work, and that's because of Brexit. It's very difficult to do that. London and Heathrow say travel will return to normal around the end of the year for those airports.
Wow.
It takes 3 to 4 months to train people, number one. And number two, not a lot of people want to wait around 3 or 4 months. They go, I'm going to go get another job. So it is pandemonium in London airports at times. And Amsterdam is a large airport, but you got to go through passport control if you're returning to the States. And that can be a long line. So what you do is you bust to the front of the line. Now, yesterday in Amsterdam, unless you're flying business class and have some sort of elite fast track line, which not all passport controls do, but many do. Yesterday, there was an employee who was saying, anybody leaving before 9 a.m. or whatever, they will take you to the front of the line. But you can't count on that. Do what I do, and I've do it several times a year. Just bust to the front of the line. Just 1,000 apologies as you go past the 125 people in front of you waiting in line saying, oh, I'm really sorry, I got a flight, I've only got 10 minutes, whatever, and get to the front of the line. So there you go.
So you'll just got to hope that the front of the line is not from New York, because then you'll be showing not the back of the line, but even further than the back of the line.
Right. Somebody will punch you in the stomach and trip you. Yeah. I've had great luck doing this in Europe twice in the last few flights. So
sneaking in line, that's the Savage Travelers. So I think that at the end of the day, I was this is the line that met me in the morning. This is outside of my hotel, between Terminal 4 and 5 in Stockholm last Tuesday. So last week, a week ago.
What's this line for? What's the line for?
The line is for security. If you can see, the terminal isn't there. This is outside of the terminal. It just happens to be, this is right in front of the hotel. The regular security line was about 3 hours, and fast track, it got me through in record time in 1 hour and 45 minutes. It took me to get through fast track.
That is incredible.
Yeah, so it's definitely, we talked about this earlier this week when you were gone, and it's definitely a big thing. So it's important to take that into account. Or, I mean, there are it's important to realize that there are times that the airports are completely dead and there are no lines. I went through London, connected through London. I went to Italy. I went to Copenhagen. Copenhagen has been said to have a lot of people in line, and you saw that when you got there. But Fast Track had 0 people in line.
Right.
I mean, there was like literally nobody. And the regular security line for me took 20 minutes. I didn't have, for some reason, British Airways, even if I was in business class and I had status, the line didn't work, or the boarding pass didn't work. So I had to stand. It was 20 minutes, so it was nothing at all.
What time of day were you saying that traffic is? That's like midday, around 11 or so? And
I think that it varies from day of the week. I would say avoid Monday mornings first of all. I would also avoid Friday afternoons for sure. And traveling in the middle of the day, like when we left Stockholm with our guests, like maybe 3 weeks ago, there was no lines at all. We were like, you and I were first in line, and we went through, and that was the end of that. It wasn't a long wait at all. So but then again, I came there at 6 o'clock, and my flight was at 7:05, so I was there at 5:30.
So what's one unique thing? Sorry, but I apologize for my voice. One unique thing about the UK is all schools have the same schedule, unlike the United States, where some kids might get out in mid-June, early June, late June, and the traveler and the airlines and hotels know it, so prices are up. But there'll be crowds for all of July and August,
right?
Because it's the only time school kids get off, and it's all the same time. Always.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of that, and also that staffing. And it's a training thing. People find, it's not an issue finding people to work in Europe to do these jobs. So it's all about training people, making sure that they can read the scanners, and make sure that they can read and see, look for the things to look for. That's things that you shouldn't take lightly. But I think that it's just pathetic that these countries that run these airports have waited so long to start hiring. They should have hired 3 months ago. I mean, restrictions were starting to move away a long time ago, and now we're in June, and they're still fiddling with all this stuff. It's just it has to do with that. The excuse in the US, which we've been catching people in a lie over and over again, when people are saying, "Oh, people don't want to work. They're on COVID relief that ended like a year and a half ago." Or like that $1,200 check is that people got. Some people got that supposedly is pay dirt. I'm going to live on that $1,200, which is like 3 tanks of gas right now. Right. It's not there, and also it's funny. There's a big article in USA Today, a big feature about housekeepers at Marriott and other properties that were saying that we want to work, we're waiting for work, we're not getting the hours. They're not giving us the hours. So the properties are literally lying, creating there's a work shortage. My ass, it's absolutely.
What else you got? What else you got?
I got let's move on. So we've got some happy news happening. Well, not so happy news. It seems like this crisis has the COVID has given us something unique, that change fees have been removed on most flights.
Right.
Meaning that the business strategy for U.S. carriers has kind of changed a little bit. So we've had Southwest, and they've never had any change fees. So if you want to change a flight, you or cancel a flight, you get a credit towards a future flight. That's the way it's always been with Southwest. And Southwest is the largest domestic carrier in the U.S. They fly more passengers domestically than any other airline. So the U.S. carriers kind of have adopted this thing, but it looks like American Airlines are starting to bring back change fees for international tickets going to Europe, going to Asia, and going to the Pacific and stuff. So something to look out for. If you think now that you're not certain that you want to go, then you got to make sure that when you travel international with American, it's important to look and see if there are change fees or not. Good. And change fees also equal. It means that you don't get the credit, you can't cancel, and things like that. That's a big move. And the U.S. carriers have been fee hungry for many years. Not saying that the international ones aren't, but we've been always the forefront of bag fees and all that stuff. And that's also happening here. What do you think of that, Rudy? Isn't it?
It's too bad. It's too bad. I really enjoyed the fact we could change. I mean, we could at least get full credit if
Mhm.
something happened. I mean, COVID isn't over. I don't know why American is doing this, and I hope United and everybody else doesn't follow suit, but they often do, obviously.
Yeah, I think but yeah, I wouldn't say that Delta is doing it. Delta has always used common sense in these situations like that for mileage expirations and things like that. They've just been developing their loyalty program where it costs 100,000 miles to go from Minneapolis to Florida in the middle seat and coach in middle of January. So or Christmas Eve, sorry. So I think that I'm not sure that the other ones will follow. And the good news is that it's not for domestic flights. And I think that that's the one that you need it the most when you plan an international flight, unless you get the COVID and stuff like that. I just feel like, well, you should get travel insurance. Yeah, you should. But I mean, at the end of the day, these large corporations like American, they got with no strings attached. They got subsidies of over $60 billion throughout the pandemic and to keep them afloat. And now we see record profits again. So it just irks me a little bit. At the end of the day, it's just keep an eye on it and make sure that and it doesn't apply to domestic flights. I think that the airlines domestically are going to keep no change fees and stuff like that, because they've seen the Southwest model and how it works in your favor, because you got a lot of people with credit that are not going to go. If you want to change something, and you say, okay, I'm changing this. It's $200 for you and your wife per person. So it's $400 to change it. People are going to change it and they're going to go. From a business perspective, if you get a credit for future use and that credit is valid for a year, there's a lot of breakage. There are a lot of people who don't use your credit. And I think the airlines are starting to see that, to realize that now.
Good. All right. Well, here's something really serious, Tommy. A study has showed a link between the anxiety, claustrophobia, and lack of space among flyers who fly coach relative to their sex drive.
Really?
It really affects the libido.
Right. You only fly business class. You're in the clear, right?
No, I flew back from coach. I flew to Greece and back in coach economy comfort or whatever, comfort plus, whatever it's called. But this guy is a European. And he says, getting on a plane in anticipation lowers your sex drive because it's anxiety provoking and you don't know what's going to happen in a tight space. So it drives your flight and fight mechanism. Here's the solution. Getting 6 to 8 hours sleep before a flight helps, which you can do if you're going to Europe. But if you're coming back from Europe, usually you have to leave early in the morning. And meditating turns off the genes that leads to an increase in these hormones. So there you go. For a strong
acupuncture?
No, well, maybe acupuncture help too. He didn't mention that, but keep that strong sex drive, you're going to have to fly business. Of course, those tickets are only $3,000 to $8,000. So,
phenomenal investment for sure.
Right. You got one.
All right. In other news, American Express has had their lounge, the Centurion Lounge is in Tom Bradley, and it is opening finally on June 15th. So tomorrow at 6 a.m. It's been closed throughout the pandemic, and it was closed for a long time. And I was just commenting how abysmal the lounge situation was. There's still the Qantas Lounge has been kind of the go-to lounge at Tom Bradley, which is the international airport. The Centurion Lounge, however, is better. They did throughout the pandemic have like lunch bags that you could get with you, and I actually picked one up, meaning that they were just prepared bags where there were a couple of drinks. And there was a freshly made sandwich and some fruit and some stuff like that you could bring with you. They had that, but they stopped doing that altogether towards the end. Instead of, the pandemic's over, let's stop doing the lunch bags and not open the lounge, which is profitable.
Well, that's good news for real life flyers. That's good news.
It's a fairly new lounge. It just opened right before the pandemic, and now that Tom Bradley will be a better situation there for travelers out of Los Angeles.
Excellent.
Speaking of the Capital One card, customers are and we're enjoying the Capital One Venture X card. Both of us are very much, and we're seeing here that the Capital One has expanded their lounge network to include over 100 more lounges, which means that if you're at an airport that has a Plaza Premium lounge, a Virgin Clubhouse, or an Air France lounge, you will get access. Some of them do already have that through Priority Pass, but there's a time limit. So that means that will be available for customers as well.
Wait a minute. Surely you can't go into the Virgin Lounge if you're flying coach, even if you have a Capital One card, can you?
Absolutely. Why not?
Oh my God, that is great.
So the Virgin Clubhouse that you have access to, I think there's one in San Francisco. There's one at Dulles. I know there's one at Dulles. Maybe
Yes,
somebody can.
Can we do it in London? Do you think? I mean, that's a great plan.
I think that there are some restrictions that all domestic Virgin Atlantic.
I see it. All domestic ones.
All domestic. The Air France lounge in Montreal.
Right.
Well, that's awfully specific.
Right.
And the Mara Business Lounge in Cancun, that's not a place where you should go at all unless you are really out of ideas. You don't go to Cancun. And then the Plaza Premium Lounges, which are, globally.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, that's good. That's good.
I guess so. I mean, it's not like it's revolutionary or anything, but
right.
But I think that's anything is better than nothing, right? So
yep. All right, you got one last short one before we say goodbye.
Yeah, I do. I know the last one I have is the we had a special going out, and we included your viewers as well. The big news hitting yesterday was that Radisson is being sold to Radisson Hotels Americas is being sold to Choice Hotels International. And there's a lot of comments overnight. I mean, we didn't get your take on it because you were in flight from Europe. What do you think, Rudy, about this?
I haven't read a word about it, Tommy. Are they keeping the same name? Are they keeping Radisson brand?
So that's the question. And there's a good Skift article about this. And I'm looking forward to the Loyalty Summit this Thursday, where Radisson Rewards Americas is the main sponsor of the event. It's hosted at the Radisson Blu in Chicago. And we've got Brian Summers from Skift that's going to be there, in addition to Scott McCartney from the Wall Street Journal. And or formerly the Wall Street Journal. Now I saw he had a feature in the Points Guy this week. He wrote an article for them.
Oh, good to know. Okay.
So,
what anyway, do you?
So I think that it's
good. What do you think? You know more.
I think I think it's very difficult. So the way that the history was between these two companies was that Carlson was in Minneapolis. They've always been in Minneapolis. They've had hotels. They had a cruise line. They had TGI Fridays that they still own and things like that, and Carlson Wagonlit and all that stuff. So, and then they got into this thing, and they kind of merged and started doing business with Residor Hotels, which is based in Brussels. And Residor was owned partially by SAS. Scandinavian Airline was a big shareholder because SAS had a big chain. I don't know if you know, but back in the days, there were SAS hotels all over the world.
I remember.
They had quite a few of them, and iconic hotels in London and Kuwait and Scandinavia, throughout Scandinavia. They had one in Paris. They were everywhere, sensible places. So these guys went together, but they got acquired by a Chinese company in 2016, I think it was 2017. And that brought about restrictions posed upon the U.S. government on various, databases. And since the Chinese company was owned by the Chinese government, they didn't want to give access to some privacy stuff. So they had to split up the companies. So the Americas company is one company and the international is international. It's really messy because there's two loyalty programs. They match status between the two, and you can move points between the two. But it was a pain in the butt for me to set it up. I feel I'm pretty savvy. It took me a while to get it going. And now we're seeing Choice buying the brands. And we're talking the Country Inn and Suites is not an issue, right? That's the vast majority of the brands. There's about 450 of those. And those can easily be rolled into Choice's portfolio because it's, kind of the same type of hotels. They're like No Frills, Road Warrior hotels and things like that. But then you have the Radisson Blues, and then you have the regular Radisson too. They can also kind of go in there because they're kind of worn out, most of them here, right? And they're the Radisson, the ones that are only called Radisson are the ones that are not good enough to be Radisson Blues. So I think that's the thing. But what will happen internationally? That's the big issue. They say that they will keep growing the brands. The press release was talking about that. But Residor has, 700 hotels, or Radisson International, based out of Brussels, still has about 700 hotels, most of which are Radisson Blues and Park Inns by Radisson, and Radisson Reds and things like that. What will happen with them? That's the big question. What will happen with the loyalty program? Will it all be rolled into Choice's program, which is not competitive in the premium areas of hotels, right? So
Surprised they didn't answer some of those questions in their initial press release.
I look back at the Marriott deal, and they were better prepared. And also the close of this deal is just very, very short. I think it was 60 to 90 days. And that means that, to me, that tells me that they're not going to be able to combine the two loyalty programs. And also Choice shouldn't combine it. I mean, they're 10 times bigger. But then again, we also have Nordic Choice, which is the largest franchisees. I think it's the largest franchisees in a geographical area, definitely is. And they have their own Nordic Choice. They have their own loyalty program, which is much, much better than Choice Privileges, which means that, they to match the market. The difference here is that it is the same market. So it's very hard to tell, but it's an interesting deal, especially for Minnesota, that has had the privilege of having such a great company. And I am a personal fan of Radisson Rewards. I think that it's internationally, I use it a lot. There are some great properties all over the place, and I usually maintain my status, and I have a credit card there. But it's not sustainable the way it is now. You can't have a Chinese company and have everything split down the middle. They can't talk to each other. It's really wasn't sustainable. It wasn't well thought through and by management, and the acquisition was problematic. So I guess that's something, right?
Well, it is. And given that we now have to fly business class everywhere, we're only going to be able to afford Motel 6s.
Right. And so there's a lot of country inn and suites in our future for sure, or a ding dong is going to stop working.
Exactly. All right.
There you have it. Well, that's good that we have all these miles and points that we can use, isn't it?
Right. Keep in mind, this is a June 14th, 2022 conversation.
Yep. And I think that's pretty much everything. Great to have you back, Rudy. We will check in when we have time the next time to talk to everybody.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye, Tony.
Yeah. Bye-bye.